NFL team wants to be in the position that the Cleveland Browns are currently in, sitting at 2-7 with 8 games to play. But it's a time for development and to see where this franchise is at. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB, and the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd keep on coming out. We're going to keep pushing out the content. Become an everyday or subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is sponsored by Ultimate GM. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Hey, everybody. Appreciate everybody checking out the last episode, Jedrick Wills. One highlight there would be the Cleveland Browns released a depth chart today. Going further, there was someone listed at left tackle, and that has been a change to the Browns depth chart with Dwan Jones, now your starting left tackle. Didn't get to it yesterday. I did want to say to Akeem Adeniji and his wife, obviously just terrible news. Delivering a stillborn child. I mean, just absolutely terrible news. So, to he and his wife as they try to get through this difficult time, thoughts and prayers. Certainly a difficult situation for anyone to ever have to go through. A lot of people have asked, a lot of people question, and I know you're all excited by the 12-0 Cleveland Cavaliers. What's to watch for here for the Cleveland Browns, sitting sadly at 2-7, 8 games to play? Do you want to play spoiler? Sure. I kind of look at it a different way. Browns, have a chance here to, see some guys in some larger roles going further here this year and trying to establish this, what these guys can give them. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, in my opinion, probably the most important player going further for the Cleveland Browns in this remaining 8 games, with eyes certainly on 2025, is in fact Dwan Jones. Left tackle is certainly one of the more expensive positions in the entire NFL. You either have a veteran who's probably on a really solid contract, or you have a really high draft choice who most certainly is on a very high contract, most likely a first-round contract. Dwan Jones now in year 2, entrenched, and looks most likely to be the starting left tackle for the Cleveland Browns from here on out. I think we all know Dwan Jones's floor would be, a pretty good right tackle. Again, we don't know where this offensive line is going to stand for 2025, and it's certainly a little early to tell. But if Dwan Jones can take over and prove to this team that he can be their left tackle, not only going further this year, but even into 2025 and into 2026. I know so many of you people are misconstrued about the Browns salary cap situation, and I suggest you listen to Jack Duffin over at the OBR. This is his specialty. This is pretty much all he does. Jack is really, really good at this stuff, and you'll find through listening to Jack that the Browns' financial situation isn't as bleak as some of you people think, or some of you people are led to believe that it is. But if you were able to get 2.5 starting seasons out of Dwan Jones from where he was drafted, that is an absolute coup in the NFL. You'd be saving crazy amounts of money. You figure NFL left tackles, I'm not sure what the average is between, veteran contracts and first round contracts, but you got to be figuring it's $15 million position. Jed Wills is getting almost $15 million this year, on his 5th year option. So this, and look, the Browns don't have to find a way to save money, but if you can, you're certainly going to take advantage of that. So that's why seeing whether or not Dwan Jones can be the left tackle for this team in the future is one of the most important things to watch for the Cleveland Browns over the remaining 8 games. He's always going to be paired up against a really solid pass rusher week in, week out. Certainly we'll have, a big test Thursday night, week from Thursday against Pittsburgh Steelers. Certainly some decent pass rushers for New Orleans Saints. He's going to get to see all the brand names. And, if Dwan Jones can prove to this team that he's the guy for that position, it's going to be a big one to watch, certainly. The other one would be, how this wide receiver room works out here over, the remaining 8 games. I know there's a lot of people asking and basically clamoring for Jamari Thrash. I'm one of them. I understand it. But you talk about this wide receiver room and, outside of Jerry Jeudy, who's not an old player by any means whatsoever, almost all of these wide receivers are pretty much the same age. They're pretty much within like 1 calendar year of each other. So you certainly have, your thoughts on, you'd like to see Jamari Thrash, and then you have Elijah Moore, who is still just a pup in NFL terms, who's already on his final year of his rookie deal in the NFL. Things were a lot more promising for Elijah Moore last year. They've certainly picked up, as certainly has the entire wide receiver corps, the last couple of weeks playing with Jameis Winston. Statistical output is growing for all of these guys, certainly growing for Jeudy, certainly growing for Elijah Moore, and certainly really growing for Cedric Tillman, which is really, really great to see for Cedric as well. So, how do you get those 3 continued to go and work in another guy like Jamari Thrash? I mean, it stinks that, everybody kind of deserves a look. And how do you determine and weigh and balance who gets those looks? And look, none of us are wrong for wanting to see Jamari Thrash. I know there's people out there asking for Mike Woods, and look, it's not really a knock on Mike Woods, sure, but I mean, it's only one football. Browns already have a top 3 group at wide receiver that's been pretty good the last few weeks, and you want to try and work in somebody else also while you're still working in David and getting David Njoku his touches and targets, and of course finding some way to get your running game going. There's a lot here, and these are things certainly on the offensive side of the ball that are going to be key and paramount for me as far as what I view and what I am intensely observing over the final 8 weeks. A lot of questions about DTR, and I think they're fair. But if the Cleveland Browns feel that their starting quarterback is not currently on the roster in 2025, that's also probably means that they view that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not a viable option to be their starting quarterback in 2025. It is what it is. We'll get to see DTR, though, at some point this year for a couple games. I guarantee that. But offensively, that's where my eyes are going to be. We'll certainly, break this down in segment 2 with the defense in mind. Your latest Locked On Browns rolls on. Appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. Hey, Browns fans. If you remember, we have a great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM. Well, they're back, and they've added an amazing new game mode I need to tell you all about. The game that has you step into the shoes of a football franchise GM and lead it to glory now has a new head coach career mode. So not only can you be Andrew Berry, you can also be Kevin Stefanski. So on top of getting to build your own dynasty by drafting players, signing free agents, and hiring coaching staff, now you also get to call offensive plays during games as well. Additionally, you'll dig the new tools you can work with, such as individual training camps and upgraded negotiation system. So this fun and realistic game just got a lot better. If you already have it installed, be sure to do an update so you can try out the new mode. If you don't have it yet, download it right now. It's a must-have for all football fans. I love it, and I'm pretty sure you guys will as well. Ultimate Pro Football GM is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. And there's a special offer for Locked On fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure to get it, as this perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you'll want in creating a dynasty. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com, ultimategm.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Browns continues. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. The everyday crowd, if you're not part of it by now, make a new plan, stand, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It is always free. When you are done here, make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler Rowan in the mornings, Anthony Wiggins in the afternoons. Jaguars fan, Titans fan. These guys are fired up about their own teams. So when they get to talk about other NFL teams as well, the fired up level just takes it up a notch for both gentlemen. So we've talked what is key here for the Browns and what you're kind of looking for evaluation wise over the next 8 weeks. We're going to do the same thing here now, of course, defensive side of the ball. Now, the Browns have some players that need to be looked at, need to certainly be evaluated over the next few weeks. If you remember, I brought up earlier, the Browns had released a new and updated depth chart here for the second half of the season for them, the final 8 games. One thing that really stood out to me right off the bat is on this depth chart currently, Browns only have 7 defensive linemen on that depth chart, 4 defensive tackles, 3 defensive ends. Interesting. Light number to be playing with in the NFL. So I think Dwan Briggs is going to be brought up. I think Sam Kamara is going to be brought up. So there's also another question here. You know, I'm seeing a lot of people talk that the Browns have 3 open roster spots on their 53 right now. I only believe it's 2. So I don't have confirmation either way. We will certainly know when the Browns release some information ahead of practice tomorrow, which would be Wednesday. So that's the day you're looking out for that. But, you know, Isaiah McGuire, and, you know, this came up on another show today, and, you know, I'm not going to criticize or any of that, but, you know, Isaiah McGuire's already been getting a lot of reps. Once Alex Wright went down, Isaiah McGuire was going to get a lot of reps. Certainly it's paramount for this team. You know, second-year player, you know, drafted right in the vicinity that Dwan Jones was 2 drafts ago. You know, you're certainly looking, and, you know, we'll get to this in the next segment here about Andrew Berry and his drafts, because I think it's not being judged fairly, but it's a story for segment 3, of course. So Isaiah McGuire, absolutely a pinnacle player here going further for this team. Right now, currently, you have 4 defensive ends under contract for next season. Alex Wright, of course, Isaiah McGuire, Ogbenayon Karankwell, and, of course, you know, Mr. Number 95, you know, guys, part owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Mr. Myles Garrett, of course. But for McGuire, you know, and this is a really good spot for him, because as you try to get better in the NFL, sometimes you get better by mistakes and learning on the fly. And, you know, you try a pass rush move against a certain player and they stone you. But guess what? That's how you improve. So you improve yourself. Am I not doing the move well enough? Is this move just not work against this guy? Was it the wrong move to even try? So you need to get out there and do this. And it's not easy in the NFL when you're a mid-round pick, you know, a day 3 pick, because even your reps in the preseason, you're going against players who are probably, you know, either A, right in your class as far as level, or B, lower than your class. So it's really hard for player evaluation to come from that. He's going to be playing against starting offensive linemen for the New Orleans Saints, Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs. These are guys he's going to be taking legitimate reps against going further. And we'll see how it works out, because Isaiah McGuire, there's a lot of talent there. There was talent there at Missouri. A lot of people felt like he was underdrafted when the Browns picked him up. So certainly a name to continue to watch here as we go on. Now, Dwan Briggs, I would like to see him get some run. I really would, because there's no way this team is going into NFL games with only 7 defensive linemen. You just can't do it. So Dwan Briggs, Mike Hall are huge names for this team going further down the stretch. They really, you know, need to just get playing time. And, certainly it's not an ideal situation by any means whatsoever for the Browns sitting here at 2-7. But you make some of these moves, you bring in veterans, like the Browns are now in the opposite spot of, say, a team like the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, who just brought in 2 veteran tackles, defensive tackles, one of them being Quentin Jefferson. The Browns made these moves in the offseason, basically banking on the fact they thought they were going to be a good football team and saying, hey, look, I don't want to necessarily stunt the growth path of some of these players I drafted. Michael Hall was certainly a different situation with the time missed. But you now have the chance for these guys to get these warts out of the way. And, maybe young mistakes that these players would have made next year in year 2 and year 3 can kind of get those things out of the way now by letting them play, letting them grow, letting them develop. So huge guys here going further. The linebacker position, we all know that, JOK, it's minimum, I guess it's probably December before we could possibly see him again. So with that in mind, this is a million meaningful reps for Mahmoud Diabate. Probably a meaningful reps as well for rookie Buki Watson, which these guys need. Look, you don't necessarily, want to bank your roster on a day 3 linebacker and an undrafted free agent linebacker. But if these guys can show that there's a possibility they can be the number 2 and number 3 linebacker for this team in 2025, you got a guy in an undrafted free agent contract, and you got a guy in a day 3 contract. Again, it's a coup if these guys can take the opportunity and run with it. The Browns have never valued linebackers monetarily, similar to running back position, but Nick Chubb forced them to change their beliefs. Linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah made them change their beliefs. But just because they are applying decent money to one of the guys at those positions doesn't mean they're going to do it for everybody. The days of veteran linebackers here in Cleveland are probably over. JOK is your veteran linebacker. Diabate, Buki Watson. Maybe a Devin Bush stays and, on not a big deal as a veteran in the room. But these are things that are huge here. I still don't know where at with the quarterback room. You really want to see Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson have a really, really strong second half here. Greg, as we know, is tied to this organization. Only way to move on from Greg would certainly be trade. I'm not sure the compensation is going to be enough for that. Wow, the Browns into agreeing to that. So strong second halves from Greg Newsome and MJ Emerson would certainly be huge here. The safety position, Juan Thornhill and whatever went on social media last week. Well, there's a good possibility Juan Thornhill, maybe does move on in the all season. It's not been the best run for him, nothing personal. A lot of it's been injury, and he hasn't been on the field as much as desired. The Browns could choose to, walk out of that contract with a 3-year deal, which essentially was 2. The Browns could choose to walk away from that contract, which would leave Grant Delpit, which would lead Ronnie Hickman, and certainly somebody else coming in to that mix. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Appreciate everybody sticking around. You guys have seen the electricity whether the Cavaliers are home or they're on the road. It's a 12-0 franchise right now playing some really, really good ball. The excitement's in the buildings. The celebrities are in the buildings. You're seeing it kind of everywhere, and I think a lot of it has to do with the success of the WNBA, the NBA players appreciating so much, and you just see so many famous faces in games whenever you turn on. You might want to go ahead and get to GameTime and get tickets to get in on all the excitement. You can use a new feature, which is called GameTime Picks, that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. The GameTime Picks section filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. I highly recommend toggling the all-in pricing. If you don't like to go from window to window to window and see the rate go up, GameTime allows you to do this, and you get it right away, so you know what the price of the seat is going to be. You also have their lowest price guarantee at GameTime, which will credit you 110% of the difference if you get a better deal somewhere else. You also have the GameTime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime picks. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. We are closing out segment 3 here of your latest Locked On Browns. Again, I appreciate everybody chimed in yesterday. Got to grab my thoughts on Jedrick Wills and the statement and I think the Browns made their statement today. Teams don't normally shuffle around their depth chart, but I think the Browns did make a statement today by changing that depth chart to have it reveal that Dwan Jones is now the starting left tackle for this team. So we continue in, I know people, because look, we're at 2-7. What's popular for creators, myself and others. We're certainly talking the NFL draft and mock drafts and all that good stuff, probably a lot earlier than any of us want to. I get it. But I think there's a lot of people saying, well, what's the point? Andrew Berry can't draft. And look, he has had 5 drafts now. Yes, he has. And to show for it to this point, his first round picks that he have made have been, of course, Jedrick Wills and Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome, there have been some real ebbs and flows. It was great as a rookie. Year 2, not so much. Last year, thought he was really good. This year, leveling off again. Those are the only 2 first-round picks. Me, one of the bigger things I'm going to grade a GM on is first-round picks. So are we certainly not putting Andrew Berry in Canton based on his first-round picks? But look, for 3 years, this guy was extremely, extremely handcuffed in the draft. And you have to view a GM every way possible. And look, the Deshaun Watson trade. And look, anybody wants to point fingers, they're all to blame. They're all to blame. They were all in on it. They all made the decision. They all thought that they were getting an elite player and paid an elite price. And look, there's a lot of you fans that were really excited about it at the time, understanding maybe you didn't like the person, but you were thrilled about the player the team might have acquired. It was always a difficult pill to swallow. A lot of it had to do with the person that he was. We thought we were getting this incredible talent, and at 3 years in, it's just not been good. It's not been good at all. But we'll see over the next 8 weeks and give a better chance here to see where the 24 class is. We're going to see a lot of Mike Hall. Probably going to see a lot of Buki Watson. Hopefully get to see some Jamari Thrash. 3 picks simultaneously from the 23 class: Cedric Tillman, Dwan Jones, and Isaiah McGuire are essentially starting players for this team currently, and are going to be probably the biggest under the microscope players for the Browns over the next 8 games. It's going to be a good chance to certainly evaluate, what Andrew Berry did. Day 2, day 3 picks, most of them don't hit the ground running. Most of them, it takes a little time, or they don't hit the ground ever. Dwan Jones looks like he's going to be a starting tackle in the offensive in the NFL for a long time. Could it be left, which makes it a home run pick? Could it be right, which still makes it a very good pick? Cedric Tillman over the last 3 weeks has looked like the different version in that wide receiver room that I've talked about millions of times. He's just a bigger, stronger guy. Not the rest of the wide receivers are built like that. Isaiah McGuire, Is he going to be a starting defensive end in the NFL? Not sure. But you go watch NFL games every Sunday. How many pass rushers do good teams throw out? 3, 4. Can it be a guy that gets you 20 to 25 reps a week? That's ideally what you're looking for. Can it be a guy that gets you 5, 6 sacks a year? Ideally, that's what you're looking for. We're going to get to a little bit more about the Zay McGuires of the world over the next few weeks. So Mike Hall, certainly a huge, huge player here. Not much statistical production to this point, but you were certainly seeing a really fun prospect. You were seeing a guy with a whole bunch of ability. This was always going to be, interesting with Mike because he's such a baby coming into the NFL. This is the weirdest thing right now as far as even the draft. We're getting guys that are coming in who aren't even old enough to buy a drink when they're drafted. Or we're getting guys that come into the draft that are maybe closer to AARP than they actually are to, buying that first drink legally. It's a crazy, crazy world. That's going to start to mellow off here over the next few years as the COVID effect obviously takes away from the NFL draft and goes away from the NFL draft. So, I think everybody wants to kill Andrew Berry's first draft to this point. So, I'm not saying he's, dead and buried, and I'm certainly not saying he's the greatest drafting GM that ever lived. But to say he's going to deserves a little more time, I'm fine. Because look, I will always gamble on good people. And what I know about Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski is that they are good people. And, they took a really bad situation here that this franchise was in. And look, now we're upset when we don't win. We came to the point where we were expecting to win. And none of y'all kid yourselves. None of you ever thought that you would be at the point where you were mad at the Cleveland Browns for being below your expectations. Again, appreciate you all for listening along. Check out yesterday's episode about the Jed Wills nonsense. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL podcast, Tyler Rowan, and of course, Mr. Tony Wiggins. These guys break it down. Unique styles from the two of them. And when they get something that gets under their skin, they are not afraid to show it. Appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The Everyday Crowd is a bunch of filthy animals, but they're my filthy animals. Become an everydayer and a filthy animal. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.